Imagine you have an incredibly sharp knife, and you slice an apple in half. Then you keep cutting. Halves become quarters, then eighths. Smaller and smaller pieces appear before you, but after a few more cuts, something interesting happens. You start to see the apple's cells, tiny building blocks of the fruit. As you keep slicing, you chop the cells into molecules, and after more cuts, you're left with individual atoms. But could you keep cutting? Your knife is sharp, and you slice into the atom, peeling away the electrons. At the center, you find the tiny atomic nucleus, much smaller than the apple you started with. Undeterred, you continue cutting. The nucleus splits into protons and neutrons, and eventually, you reveal the fundamental particles, quarks and gluons. You're now in the realm of the subatomic, where particles behave more like waves, and the apple is no longer a solid object, but a sea of fields and probabilities. Have you reached the limit? Maybe not. Some think quarks and electrons might be made of even smaller strings, vibrating across extra dimensions. Maybe reality itself is made of these fundamental strings, or perhaps at some level, space and time themselves break down into the smallest possible units. Or could our universe be a simulation? Perhaps everything we know, including the apple, is a hologram, a mere projection of a deeper reality. Or even stranger, maybe the universe is just pure mathematics at its core. So what's real? Is the apple in front of you truly there? It smells real, tastes real, and feels real. But what does it actually mean for something to be real? To understand reality, we need to ask these tough questions. Take the story back to ancient times. Our ancestors didn't question what was real. For them, reality was what they could see, touch, and hear. But as human minds evolved, they began to wonder about the world beyond their senses. Questions about gods, spirits, and unseen forces began to shape their understanding. Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher, took these thoughts further. He suggested that our reality might just be shadows of a truer, deeper reality. Think of prisoners chained in a cave, only able to see shadows on the wall. To them, the shadows are their reality, but they're missing the full picture. Plato's idea was that the world we see is just an imperfect copy of the true reality beyond our understanding. Fast forward to Isaac Newton and the scientific revolution. Newton began to unweave the mysteries of the universe, showing us that light from the sun contains all the colors of the rainbow. But as poet John Keats lamented, by reducing rainbows to mere physical laws, had science taken the magic out of nature? Science, however, kept peeling back layers of reality. Let's go back to our apple. Why do we see it as green? The answer lies in the way our eyes and brains perceive color. Our eyes have three kinds of cells, sensitive to red, green, and blue. Our brain mixes these signals to create the sensation of color. But for many animals, like birds and bees, color perception is very different. Some creatures can see ultraviolet or other colors beyond human vision. This shows us that our perception of reality is subjective, created by our brains. The color of the apple is just a product of how our brains process light waves. In other words, we live in our own version of reality, built from the information our senses give us. Sounds, sights, even colors, they're all our brain's interpretation of external signals. So, if what we perceive is not truly reality, then what is? Can we trust anything our senses tell us? Even space and time, which seem so stable, are not as certain as they once seemed. With the revolutions in science that followed Newton, even these basic concepts were thrown into question. In the end, reality is far more complex than we once thought. What's your thoughts on this? Comment below.